Usually I avoid making response videos, but sometimes I think they're justified. I think there's a certain pretext whereby that can have a place. The reason I try to avoid making them is because it can turn into a soap opera, and also I don't believe in giving more weight to anonymous trolls. But sometimes there is a context to it I think it's worth talking about. And I want to talk here about my experience with Tommy Robinson supporters. Now, I knew the last video I made would probably garner a bit of attention because there's certain subjects that do, they just seem to get certain attention. It's got about 1,000 views in the last day, so that's by the standards of this channel, that's quite a lot. And it's good. I'm pleased people are watching the channel. But it was a lot of the comments were predictable. They were from Tommy Robinson supporters, and you know, what's interesting is if they actually bother to look at the video, they will see that I was actually critical of Hawksmoor. So it wasn't just a Tommy Robinson attack video. I was actually being critical of Hawksmoor because I think the statement that they asked his party to leave and they said it wasn't for political reasons. I don't believe that. I think it was. I think they know Robinson is a public figure. They know what he represents, and they, I think they were honest that their staff felt uncomfortable. But again, I highlighted the fact that why ask them to leave halfway through the meal? That doesn't make sense to me. Either let them stay or refuse them initially. Now, some have said that it's discrimination. Not necessarily. If you have, I think it's not necessarily good business, asking someone to leave because of the political views, and I do believe that was the reason. But Hawksmoor could validly say that Robinson has a criminal record. Now, how's that any different? How's that any different from Weatherspoons or another pub chain knowing that a particular patron has a criminal record, not wanting trouble and asking that person to leave? I don't really think it's any different. Um, so it would be discrimination if it was, if they were saying white men can't enter, but that wasn't the rationale. I'm not sure if it's good business. I think it could, like I say, his supporters will then boycott it. But then again, I also think it's important to say that Robinson's supporter may be exaggerated. I mean, put it this way, I don't think the Reform Party under Nigel Farage would let Robinson join. I don't know if he's made overtures to do that or not, but certainly they'd share a lot of common ground. And even Farage would know that Robinson would be toxic within that party because of the reputation he has. Now, in the start of the video, I said I don't like or trust Tommy Robinson. You know what? That's my right. It's the right of anyone to feel any way about any public figure as they so choose. I don't go around telling Tommy Robinson supporters that they must admire whoever. Um, so I've always found it a bit pathetic, not just with Tommy Robinson, but with other people who seem to have this cult-like following. That is to say, people whose followers will lash out at anyone who thinks slightly differently from their cult leader. It's very unhealthy. It's very close-minded. You could say you've got this wrong about Robinson, but to demand to call me an idiot because I don't like him, it says more about you than it does about me. If I'm an idiot, then so is most of the country. Most of this country does not support or sympathise with Tommy Robinson. Now, another classic thing that they come out with is the horrific grooming gangs scandal. Here's the thing, I'm not late on that bandwagon. I've always said, as long as that's been the news, I have said that's appalling. And these grooming gangs are evil. They need to be arrested and face hard jail time. It's a despicable thing preying on vulnerable teenage girls. Um, and yeah, there was a racist component to that. Absolutely. In fact, I would say years ago, that political correctness shouldn't stand in the way of justice. I would say years ago that I think some of the mainstream parties, especially Labour, have handled this very badly. Police forces have handled it badly because there's this perception if they arrest Asian grooming gang members, then it's somehow a racist thing. even though the data shows that it was overwhelmingly British, Asian, particularly British Pakistani men, and predominantly white victims. And there was a racist component to that, as we know, because of the way they looked at the victims. If you have yourself suffered in that regard, I have enormous sympathy for you. And I can even understand you supporting Tommy Robinson, I'll say that. Um, so anyone who thinks my critique of Tommy Robinson is because I'm ignorant of grooming gangs, rubbish. And it's this mentality that I have a problem with. You're with us or against us. You know, here's some news for you people. It's possible for people to agree with a message, but not the messenger and not the way the messenger is doing it. Now, when Robinson started becoming kind of a semi-public figure, I never totally trusted him. I never totally trusted him, but I was open-minded enough to say, well, he might be on to something. Let's hear him out. There may be, double justice going on. Why is it the police will crack down on him, but not Islamists in the same way? And I still think there's a problem with that actually. Um, I even very, very briefly, had an exchange with Tommy Robinson himself. It was something about he'd published a book, and I asked him. Uh, it was years ago. It was I forget the exact question I asked him, but I even had a tiny little exchange, and he was polite to me. Um, but the turning point for me, so I always thought, okay, I don't entirely trust this guy. I don't like the way he goes about things, but he might be on something. I'll be open minded about it. The turning point for me was that incident with the 15-year-old Syrian boy in West Yorkshire. Now, someone who's going to blame a bullying victim for their own bullying, smear that person, and Robinson admitted he got it wrong, but he never apologised. I've even seen people despicably, shame on you, trying to still justify that. That 15-year-old boy got subjected to a racist attack in the school that he was at. That's disgusting. Robinson was fueling the fire. So what does it say about someone who would lie about bullying victims to justify the bullying that they're being subjected to? That says it all. And that for me might have been the turning point where I thought, the hell with this guy. Last year during the violence, Robinson, instead of trying to calm people down, instead of trying to be part of the solution, and yes, saying we need to address issues around immigration, Robinson was mouthing off on the pulpit, stoking the flames. That's what sort of person Tommy Robinson is. I'm sick and tired of his supporters saying, but the grooming gangs, that makes, you know, a lot of people are disgusted by that. A lot of people acknowledge that's a major crime in this country, one of the worst crimes this country's ever had. A lot of people demand that the perpetrators are brought to justice. And like I say, I've always said political correctness shouldn't have stood in the way of that. Robinson latched onto. Yeah, he interviewed some of the victims. He has been very vocal on this issue, and he's not wrong about it. There is a problem with grooming gangs. But just because you have a good message doesn't mean that the way you're going about it is good. There's nothing good about the fact Robinson has spread false rumours. There's nothing good about the fact that he lashes out at anyone who disagrees with him, not in an adult, respectful way, let's agree to disagree. The guy's a thug. I mean, he looks and sounds like the ex-football hooligan that he is. I just have no time for him. And I'm sick and tired of people treating him like he's sort of a Robin Hood type figure. He's really not. Now, getting back to the restaurant incident, like I say, I don't think Hawksmoor handled it particularly well. But there is also a valid argument, like I say, that they could have asked him to go because of his criminal record. Like I say, how is that any different from a pub asking a known troublemaker to leave? And people might say, oh, they just wanted to go there to have something to eat. Maybe they did. But if you are constantly on the wrong side of the law, you can't really whine when you have a bad reputation. And again, his supporters might say, oh, this is true to justice. The establishment is just attacking Robinson because he tells the truth, except he doesn't always tell the truth. He has a track record of distorting things and outright lies. It's the fact that he's jumped onto a populist issue, something that did anger a lot of people, the grooming gangs. He's also spoken about Islamist extremism in this country. Those are both serious problems. No one can accuse me of being PC on either of those things. I've had clashes with left wing people on those things. But Robinson supporters are so predictable. They can't really come up with an adult argument. So they just, what do they do with me? They attack the sound quality on my channel, which is interesting because no one else has mentioned that. People who have liked the content haven't expressed that. I know some of my videos have been less than ideal in terms of sound. Not that one. I played it back. Sound was fine. So that's clearly just an ad hominem attack. It's just a way to try and get under my skin because it's a non-issue. I also find it very rich for people who have no channel content whatsoever, and they literally have numbers and digits as their username, and you look at their channel, in some cases it was made yesterday, so they're blatantly troll accounts, or at best people who just don't have the creative energy to put anything out there. Hell, if you want, I'll give you people some guidelines. I'll give you some advice. It's not that difficult to make a channel. Why don't you actually produce something? If you think I'm full of it, if you think I'm an idiot, if you think I need to be educated, put your money where put your mouth where your pontificating is, and come up with your own channels. But most of these people are cards. They won't do it. They're happy to grovel to Tommy Robinson and treat him like a hero, but when it actually comes to them standing up, they won't do it. Unless, of course, it's burning cars and rioting like they were doing last year. Because I guarantee a lot of the rioters involved in last year's unrest would have been big Tommy Robinson fanboys. Most of them were male, some women as well. That says a lot about the sort of people who follow Tommy Robinson. Um, but incidentally, Robinson never condemned the violence. He never condemned the fact that a woman who was simply going shopping in my city had her car burned. She wasn't a migrant. She was just someone going shopping. So let's cut this crap that Tommy Robinson is some sort of man of the people. He's a glorified yob. That's all he is. Who happened to latch on to some hot button issues. It's not that difficult to do. Um, and then because of the way he goes about things, he has a criminal record, then he pitches it as the establishment out to get me. Now, do I think there's two-tier justice? Do I think that sometimes police have been heavy-handed with Robinson in comparison to Islam hate preachers? Yes, I do. And I think there's a serious problem with that. I think the way that Labour's handled the grooming gangs has been a disgrace. I think they need to acknowledge the anger that they've caused by their handling of this. But I have absolutely no time for Tommy Robinson supporters, and I'm sick of these people coming to my channel telling me I need to watch documentaries and educate myself. This is pretty rich coming from people who can't think objectively, coming from people who blindly follow a public figure. I don't admire any public figure to that extent, to the point where I believe every single word they say, to the point where I would absolutely, you know, be prepared to use violence for them. And that's what Tommy Robinson supporters are. Um, so, if you people think that you've got one over on me, or you're putting me in my place by telling me I'm an idiot, who's the idiot? I mean, someone who's actually making a video involving someone that they're critical of. I am critical of Robinson, and yet I am still trying to be as fair as possible. I'm saying that actually the restaurant handled it badly, and maybe it would have been better if they just let him stay. I'm actually saying that. I'm not a sort of left wing person who's saying, "Oh, I can't stand far right activist Tommy Robinson, so he should be thrown out," and laughing about it. I said I had mixed views on the incident, and I meant that. I have to say now, though, because of the mentality of Tommy Robinson supporters, it makes me less sympathetic to him. This is the irony. These people don't know that their attitude just polarizes others. Why do you think if Robinson is so right, okay, put it this way, if he's so right and if he's just a man telling the truth, why is it the mainstream don't support him? And they don't. Um, you could say that's just because people believe the media, or maybe it's because we've got eyes and ears and we see Robinson's own approach to things, how he lashes out at people, how he conducts himself. That says a lot. Um, so, like I say, the turning point for me was that incident with the boy in school in Yorkshire. I think whatever good Robinson may have done before that, I just think that was contemptible. And it's contemptible that there's still people churning out, smears about that boy. What does that tell you? That someone actually malign a bullying victim and blame them for their own bullying. It's disgusting. Um, and this isn't a case of, the point about that incident is Robinson himself admitted that it was false once he faced legal action for defamation. He himself admitted it was like false information and he shouldn't have used it. He never apologized to the victim. But what does that tell you? I mean, if what he was saying about that boy is accurate, he wouldn't have apologized. He would have doubled down and said, no, this is accurate. What I've said is true. But he didn't. So at the very best, it shows that Robinson's reckless. He doesn't check his sources. Yet when you tell Robinson supporters to say, oh, everyone makes mistakes, you know, you can't have it both ways. You can't idolize Robinson on one hand, and then when he does make mistakes, just make excuses for it and not acknowledge the valid criticism that people make of him. I think any public figure who goes around telling lies, who distorts situations, who fans the flames, has to be taken with caution, whether they be on the far left or the far right, populist left, what have you. Um, there are hot button issues out there, like the grooming gangs, like Islamist extremism, that have to be dealt with, and I have long criticised mainstream parties for failing to do so. I've said that. This is the irony. Robinson supporters think I'm some sort of leftist. I'm not. I am what my channel says. I'm a centrist. I don't trust or like Tommy Robinson, but that doesn't mean I'm ignorant about the grooming gangs. And the arrogance of these people, they think that they're the only ones to know about it. It's a massive scandal and it is a disgrace. And I think every single grooming gang member should serve hard time in prison. It was an evil thing, to prey on vulnerable young girls the way they did. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Some might interpret this as responding to trolls, giving them more oxygen than they deserve, but I do think there's a wider issue because I don't think Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon supporters understand that their attitude, their obnoxious approach to anyone who thinks even a little bit differently puts people off. If you dare to criticize a cult leader, then you're a leftist, you're an idiot. They've even tried ad hominem attacks because of my hair color. Yeah, my redhead. What's your point? I mean, that is. I'm honestly not even offended by that. How can I be? Because it's not something that it just is. It's not strength, it's not weakness. It just is. It's the color of my hair. Um, so that sort of mentality is it shows they have automatically lost the argument. But if you look at these people, they have nothing. That I think you know if you have no channel content and you're coming to my channel and saying I'm an idiot, you're a card. You people are just cards because you're attacking me when you have nothing to offer. I'd have more respect for you if you actually had your own channel content and you can disagree with me as much as you want, but at least come out with something. Don't just be an anonymous troll. Um, so yeah, summed up, I would say two things. If I ever had any sympathy for Tommy Robinson, and that was always dubious, but there was once upon a time I sort of thought, well, this guy may be onto something. But it was that incident regarding the Syrian schoolboy and also the obnoxious behaviour of Tommy Robinson supporters. It's like the EDL, which of course Robinson founded and then left. Their whole PR thing was going through town and city centres getting boozed up and shouting England, England, typical football casual image, thug image, you know. So people who go on like that really have no right to whine about a bad image, and that's your typical Tommy Robinson supporter. I'm yet to meet a Tommy Robinson supporter who can conduct themselves in a civil and reasonable way. And I've come across a few. I came across one actually, and she actually brought a family member of mine. Um, Not a direct family member, but someone very close to me into the conversation. I was disgusted by that, and I told her so and blocked her. But that's the sort of mentality these people have. Um, so your attitude is why people don't support Tommy Robinson, not because of the media. Your attitude, the way you approach things. You can't conduct yourselves in a civil way. So that says it all. I'm not going to give you people any more airtime, but I think this was important. You can think I'm an idiot. You can think I'm full of it. You can attack my appearance. You can make up stuff about the microphone, whatever. All I ask is you have the guts to come out with your own channel, produce your own content, right? Then you could disagree with me. That's fine. But if you're going to have nothing to show for yourselves, just show my channel. It says a lot more about you than it does about me. And it's not about disagreeing with me, it's about ad hominem attacks. Because you guys and girls are not making a valid argument, you're just attacking me. That's not a valid argument. Um, if some of you want to say something like you've got the wrong perspective about Tommy Robinson, that's fine. I don't agree with you, but at least that is sort of semi civil. At least it's kind of, it's just a point of view. One of these people even claimed that I shouldn't voice my opinion. Well, fuck you. Fuck you. We have free speech in this country, as the right always like to shout about. So, yeah, I'm going to use that. And I will leave it there.